Watching try to please me in her sultry yet innocent style felt absurd. The tenderness I once longed for now felt cheap. The trust that had been shattered was long frozen. Her performance barely made me lift an eyelid. It wasn't anger that came with letting go, it was utter indifference. I didn't act like a madman and confront Grace. Instead, I went home alone, reheated the leftovers, and ate them in silence. Chloe, clear out a room for me, I'll be moving in for a few days. After hanging up, I looked around our apartment, filled with a sense of warmth, my mood complex. Grace and I had been together for 5 years, engaged for 6 years of partnership, meant nothing compared to Dylan. I really have a lot of my stuff here. I spent 2 full hours packing, only to realize I still had so much more. There was no other way. I had to pack up all the things I wouldn't need immediately, and have professionals deliver them to my new place tomorrow. After I finished, I lay down on the sofa and fell into a deep sleep. In a haze, I was woken by a noise. It was my wife, Grace, returning. She reeked of smoke and alcohol, and her movements as she took off her shoes were sluggish and labored. She had clearly had a lot to drink. Didn't you go sightseeing with your girlfriend? Why are you back already? I asked, feigning ignorance. Grace glanced at me and said flatly, "Don't think I don't know you've been following me. Dylan told me he saw everything. This woman truly amused me. She knew I'd found out, yet she still brazenly stayed out until the early hours, before bothering to come back. In the past, I would have argued with her, fought for what was right. After the argument, to avoid a cold war, I'd then follow her around like an overly devoted puppy, trying to smooth things over. But not anymore. I had always had Dylan's WhatsApp. A couple of days ago, he suddenly made his social media posts public, and I could see everything he had ever posted. In every single one, there was my fiancée, Grace. The photos of them together were intimate and loving. The locations in the photos were, without exception, clubs and bars. In college, Dylan was a playboy, always hanging out in these clubs and bars, leveraging his family's wealth. Grace came from an academic background. Both her parents were educators, so she appeared very well behaved and never used to frequent these places. But now, because Dylan liked it, she went along. She even wore a miniskirt and black stockings, things I had never had the pleasure of seeing her in. It truly was a case of her dressing to impress him. Noticing me scrutinizing her, Grace scoffed, "Am I pretty?" I calmly nodded, from a purely appreciative perspective. "You are indeed very beautiful. Beautiful is beautiful. There's no need to hide the truth." My phone buzzed. My WhatsApp rang. It was Dylan. He had posted a video on his social media posts, and even mentioned me specifically. Grace on the dance floor, like a lotus flower emerging unsullied from the mud, rose emoji. I deliberately turned my phone volume all the way up and played the video. Deafening music filled the quiet of our apartment. I noticed a flicker of confusion and panic in Grace's beautiful eyes. Then, enraged, she snapped, "Don't look at me with that judgmental gaze. It's Dylan's birthday today. If you hadn't always opposed us being together, would I have lied to you?" I almost laughed. How did this end up being my fault? As my fiancé, wasn't it her responsibility to keep her distance from other men? Seeing my silence, Grace became even more brazen. "So what if you saw Dylan and me dancing? That's normal socializing. We weren't sleeping in the same bed." I knew she was trying to provoke me, to lure me into an argument, and then twist my angry words to accuse me. In the end, it would always be my fault anyway. I was tired, and I didn't want to fight anymore. Leaving was my final answer to this relationship. Get some rest. Good night. I went back to the second bedroom, sleeping separately from her for the first time since we moved in together. In reality, I hadn't just found out about Grace and Dylan secretly going dancing at a bar. The main thing was, I had seen her cheating with my own eyes. It was early summer, and the weather was as unpredictable as a young girl's mood, constantly shifting between clear skies and rain. 3 days ago, I was about to ride my electric scooter to the office when a sudden downpour started, so I turned back to the parking garage, intending to drive to the office. Just as I reached my car door, a pair of hands pressed against the rear window of the car from inside, startling me. It was my car, and it was shaking violently at the time. Although it was over in less than a minute, I still saw Dylan's face. I knew they were together. I knocked on the car window, interrupting them. I don't know if it was generosity or kindness, but Grace came from a family with an academic background, and her parents were people who cared deeply about their reputation. Plus, when we first got together, Richard and Eleanor had been very good to me, so I forgave her. I actively defended Grace in my mind. We were only engaged, not yet married, so she wasn't technically cheating, even called me crazy, but I never imagined that my concessions and tolerance would only make Grace more brazen. Now, even Dylan dared to open his social media posts publicly, openly mentioning me and mocking me. That morning, Grace stormed into the second bedroom and woke me, demanding, "Are you moving out?" I was stunned for a moment before realizing the delivery driver had arrived for pickup. I quietly got up, walked around Grace, and helped the delivery driver move the cardboard boxes filled with my belongings to the moving dolly at the door. During this, the delivery driver repeatedly snuck glances at Grace, seemingly sensing the unusual atmosphere. Finally, as we were loading the items into the vehicle, the driver couldn't help but say to me, "How could you argue with such a beautiful wife and move out? If it were me, I'd be too busy cherishing her to ever fight." I expressionlessly handed him a cigarette, responding with silence. Yes, that's what I used to think and do. But what was the result? It only led to Grace pushing her boundaries again and again. "Ethan, are you really planning to leave me because of Dylan?" I nodded. Grace scoffed again and sneered, "You're so naive. A good horse never goes back to its old pasture, you know. I hope you don't regret this. I will never come looking for you." With that, she strode away. I didn't need to guess. I knew she was going to find Dylan. I went to Chloe's place. She was my diskmate from middle school through high school. After a failed relationship, she had been living in a house I owned as my female tenant. Usually, she didn't have much to do, so she streamed live sales from home. Now that I'd decided to separate from Grace, it was natural for me to move into my own place. Chloe didn't want to change houses because my rent was cheap, so she still lived in the master bedroom. So I asked her to help clear out a room for me. Really moving. "Are you finally getting your act together?" Chloe had a lively and cheerful personality. She tilted her head, looking at me with a playful expression, but I could tell she just wanted to tease me. "Hey, say one more word, and you can forget about the master bedroom." Chloe immediately shut her mouth, choosing not to speak. To ease the awkwardness, I smiled and asked her, "Tomorrow's a holiday. To celebrate my new start, how about I treat you to a nice restaurant for dinner?" Chloe rubbed her hands together, eager. "Sure. I haven't eaten out in ages. I am sick of eating radish and pickled vegetables with congee every day. It's making me nauseous." "E-treating, right?" I nodded, smiling. I found the highest-rated nice restaurant on an online restaurant guide, and took Chloe there for dinner. Just as our 2 medium-rare steaks arrived at the table, I ran into an acquaintance, Dylan. He was arm in arm with my fiancée, Grace, and they walked toward me, laughing and chatting. Actually, Dylan had noticed me by the entrance. As they approached, Grace was still complaining, "Didn't we say we'd go to a casual diner? Why did you suddenly change your mind about having steak?" Then, she saw me and also noticed the woman next to me. Dylan pretended to just notice me, feigning surprise. "Ethan, what are you doing here? Oh, and who's this chubby girl with you?" Chloe was furious. Although she was curvy, she was definitely the shapely type of curvy, with slim features where they mattered. I knew Dylan said that deliberately to mock my taste. Grace's looks were indeed superior to Chloe's, but I found Chloe more appealing in the long run. Grace's expression darkened. She stared at Chloe for 4 or 5 seconds before asking me, "Who is this woman? Does it concern you?" I picked up my flatware and began to cut my steak. Dylan nudged Grace with his elbow. "Let's just eat, don't mind him," but pulled Dylan's hand away and continued to address me. "Ethan, Dylan and I are just friends. You really don't need to use such childish tactics to provoke me. Don't you know how immature that is?" Before I could speak, Chloe couldn't help but retort, "Oh, look who it is. Ms. Grace, isn't it? Weren't you and Dylan getting intimate in a car? How are you still just friends? You can eat with your lover, but it's a problem if Ethan eats with me." Facing always put me under psychological pressure, and my thoughts would become muddled. Chloe's backing felt incredibly satisfying. She said exactly what I wanted to say. "You." Grace, knowing she was in the wrong, turned beet red. For once, her usually sharp tongue couldn't find a retort. She could only swallow her anger. Chloe, meanwhile, looked utterly detached, as if the matter had nothing to do with her. That clown, Dylan, immediately stepped forward to scold Chloe. "I warn you not to spread rumors. Otherwise, I'll sue you for defamation. Enough. Grace snapped coldly, stopping Dylan. Perhaps even she thought this man was a bit immature. I shrugged and continued eating my meal at the nice restaurant, as if they weren't even there. Chloe, even more cunning, deliberately moved closer to me, sitting right next to me, to get back at someone who'd just called her fat. She even thoughtfully cut a piece of steak and fed it to me. This time, I didn't refuse. Dylan, Grace, why don't we go to a casual diner instead? Grace glared at him. Why would we change? We're eating right here. The strange dinner at the nice restaurant soon came to an end. I didn't go home with Chloe. Instead, I went to our apartment. I planned to rest there for the night and move all my remaining belongings the next day. To my surprise, as soon as I opened the door, Grace greeted me, breaking from her usual coldness. She smiled radiantly and said, "Welcome home, honey." Before I could reply, she took off my jacket and hung it on the rack, then gently pushed me to sit on the sofa. The lights in the room were bright, and only then did I notice she had changed into a super sexy stocking skirt and was wearing my shirt. Normally, she always dressed like a refined lady. Now, having changed into a sultry yet innocent style, I couldn't help but steal a few more glances. "Honey, am I pretty? I wore this outfit especially for you. Didn't you always say you wanted to see me in a sultry yet innocent style?" I remained as calm as ever. "Beautiful, truly beautiful. But are you sure this was for me, and not for Dylan?" Grace's face darkened for a moment, but she quickly composed herself and said to me, "Let's not talk about the past. You cut ties with Chloe, and we can start over." My emotions were complicated. Chloe and I had no relationship to begin with. Too lazy to respond to her unreasonable demand, I turned and went back into the room to pack my work laptop and remaining clothes. Seeing no reaction from me, Grace stomped her foot in anger. She gritted her teeth and raised the stakes. "As long as you block Chloe, I promise I'll stop contacting Dylan." I stopped packing and looked back at her. Grace's expression told me she was confident I would listen to her, but this time, Grace was truly wrong. A leopard never changes its spots. Years ago, after Dylan dumped her, Grace told me she would never contact him again. I believed her, because while Dylan was studying abroad, Grace discovered he was two-timing her, and he ended up breaking up with her. Later, when she was with me, she swore that no matter what the future held, she would never contact Dylan again. And what was the result? The moment her idealized past love returned to the country, Grace got back together with Dylan. I didn't understand what Grace was truly thinking. She knew she'd been caught cheating, yet she still dared to make these demands of me. Or perhaps, she was always a fickle woman. I was stability, Dylan was excitement. She wanted stability but didn't want to give up excitement. She exploited my love for her, shamelessly humiliating me. "Grace, I've realized I don't love you anymore, so please, stop bothering me." Grace, to keep me, even initiated a kiss and a hug, trying to win me back with physical affection. She'd forgotten what I once told her: once a heart is filled with disappointment, there's no room left for hope. I rejected Grace's advances and ultimately didn't stay at our apartment. Instead, I knocked on Chloe's door late that night. I thought I had escaped Grace, but I never expected her older brother to show up at Chloe's door the next day, bringing her parents with him. Grace's brother was blunt and hot-tempered. He stormed into Chloe's room, dragged her out by her hair. Chloe struggled desperately, but how could one woman possibly stand against a grown man? Brother restrained Chloe, then walked over and slapped me. "So, Ethan, you almost engaged to my sister, yet you're keeping a mistress on the side." I was beyond shocked. What angered me even more was that Grace had clearly prepared for this. Not only had she called her own parents, but she had also called Robert and Elizabeth. The entire family cornered Chloe and me in the room. Dylan had appeared at some point, squatting behind them, live streaming on his phone and shouting, "Come on, guys, in the live stream. Check it out. Major cheating bust in progress." Just as I was about to explain, Robert stepped forward and slapped me. "You disobedient son. I laid bricks, one by one, bleeding and sweating to save money for you to get a wife. Is this how you repay me?" I clutched my face, my cheek stinging with pain. I looked at Grace. She was too guilty to meet my gaze. She was playing the victim. Was this Grace? She was certain I wouldn't harm her, so she shamelessly framed me like this. I was even more disappointed in her. "Since you've shown no humanity, don't blame me for being unjust." Grace, I pulled out my phone and immediately called the police, simultaneously shielding Chloe behind me until the truth came out. I wouldn't let anyone harm her, because this had nothing to do with her. This action greatly enraged Grace. She desperately yelled at brother, "Brother, quickly help me beat that woman to death. She's the one who seduced Ethan and shamelessly lives in Ethan's house." Emboldened by Grace, brother's attacks became fiercer and his blows stronger. Unlike brother had dropped out of middle school and had been involved in street life ever since. Drinking and fighting were his specialties. I desperately shielded Chloe, waiting for the police to arrive. It wasn't that I didn't want to explain, it was that there was no opportunity to do so. Grace, playing the victim, had portrayed herself as a tragic woman whose husband had cheated. This not only fueled her family's anger, but also garnered sympathy from Robert and Elizabeth. Everyone believed her and no one believed me. Stop fighting. At that moment, Elizabeth stepped forward. She pushed brother away, giving me a chance to breathe. "Son, what exactly is going on? Is what Grace said true?" A mother knows her son best. Even if she had seen Chloe and I in the same room with her own eyes, she was still willing to give me a chance to explain. Grace's expression subtly shifted, and she was about to speak when Dylan, who had been spectating and live streaming beside her, interrupted. "Ma'am, your son is keeping a mistress outside, and despite the ironclad evidence, you still want to defend him. Aren't you despicable? Like mother, like son indeed." At his words, the room instantly fell silent. Grace's jaw twitched. She didn't dare respond. Robert was so infuriated that he stumbled backward onto the sofa, looking as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. Then, Robert, unable to control his rage, stood up, grabbed the ashtray from the table, and lunged at Dylan. "You little punk. What does our family business have to do with you? Do you have the right to insult my wife?" Dylan laughed mockingly. "You dog. I said his mom, not his dad. What's it to you?" I finally lost my temper. I left Chloe's side, rushed forward, took the ashtray from Robert's hand, and leaped onto Dylan, aiming to smash it down hard on his head. "Son, don't be impulsive." Elizabeth was terrified. She desperately clutched my arm, and the ashtray I gripped didn't ultimately strike its target. But how could one woman stop me, consumed by rage? Robert darted out from the side, shielding Dylan's head, and ultimately my ashtray hit Robert in the waist. At that moment, the police arrived just in time. They stopped the chaotic scene. Throughout it all, Grace's parents merely watched from the sidelines. If I had brought the ashtray down and seriously injured or killed Dylan, only imprisonment would have awaited me. True character reveals itself in times of trouble. Besides my partner, only my own parents offered unconditional love. By now, the situation had completely spiraled out of Grace's control. The police were exactly who I was waiting for. Now that they were here, I didn't hesitate to pull out the dashcam footage, intending to show it to everyone present. Grace's face changed dramatically. "Ethan, I advise you to think carefully before you decide. Do you want to embarrass your parents?" Dylan also stood up. Though still reeling from his recent fear, he mustered his courage and said, "Exactly. You're not afraid of making a fool of yourself and shaming your parents." I was too furious to speak. Those two were far too good at playing the victim. Chloe, however, was calmer. She grabbed my phone, connected it directly to a Bluetooth projector, and then turned off the lights in the room. Instantly, moans and gasps filled everyone's ears. On the projected wall screen, images of Grace and Dylan together were playing. Grace went mad. She rushed over, trying to snatch Chloe's phone, but I slapped her hand away. "Watch closely. See who's been cheating." Before the video finished playing, brother pulled the projector's power cord. He was a man of straightforward character. Knowing his sister had erred, he spontaneously apologized to me. "My apologies, brother. I was out of line today. I apologize to you." As he spoke, he walked over, grabbed Dylan, and backhanded him twice. Dylan, with his skinny arms and legs, was no match for brother. He didn't dare fight back and even mumbled softly, "Apologize if you want, but why hit me?" Thud. Brother raised his knee and jammed it into Dylan's abdomen. Dylan instantly curled up like a shrimp. Everyone stopped. The police immediately intervened to stop brother's assault. Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, we'll be leaving now. If you have any issues, talk them out calmly. Assault is illegal and can lead to jail time. Also, find some time to go to the police station and register the incident. The officers had many duties to attend to every day. Seeing no further issues, They left after issuing their instructions. After the officers left, Dylan started acting up again. Officers, how can you just leave? Are you this irresponsible now? And register it afterward. Brother angrily rubbed his forehead, then kicked him again, effectively shutting Dylan up. He walked over to his sister, Grace, and said, "Ethan is such a good person. Why did you get involved with Dylan again? Look at his pathetic, slovenly appearance. I truly despise him." Robert wasn't one to tolerate anyone. He also walked over and kicked Dylan twice to vent his frustration, then turned to Grace's parents and said, "What do you say about this matter? You owe us an explanation, don't you?" Grace's parents had remained cold throughout, but were relatively reasonable. Her father stepped forward and said, "The wedding is off. Our two families are not meant to be. Let's go our separate ways from now on, that's it." I couldn't help but ask Richard, "What about the wedding contribution? Surely that should be returned." Richard was silent, then said, "Half the wedding contribution will be returned. After all, you were also in a room with another woman, weren't you? Who said my daughter was the one who cheated first?" Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. This counter-question instantly disheartened me. I tried to explain that nothing inappropriate had happened between Chloe and me. No one believed me. The wedding contribution was a total of 280,000 yuan. For wealthy people, this might not be a huge sum, but for an ordinary family like mine, 280,000 yuan was a fortune. It was money Robert had painstakingly saved. Little by little, I had done nothing wrong, so why should I listen to them? Then well, just have to go to court. I believe the law will give me a fair explanation. I didn't blame anyone but myself for being so overly devoted. An overly devoted person gives everything, and is left with nothing. What they say online is true. Being overly devoted never ends well. After this incident, Grace and I had absolutely no chance of reconciliation. Grace laughed. "Do you think you can win by going to court? I am a lawyer. I know very well that this matter isn't something a single video can prove. Besides, it's also a fact that you and Chloe were living together. Legal matters rarely resolve family issues cleanly, and judges only look at evidence. If you insist on legal proceedings, you might even have to split your house with me in the end." I had forgotten that Grace used to be a practicing lawyer, but was later permanently barred from the legal profession due to personal issues. At that moment, Chloe stepped forward. She walked into the middle of everyone, smiling radiantly. "Excuse me, everyone, but I can prove that Ethan and I have no relationship whatsoever, because I am still a virgin." My brain instantly short-circuited. Hadn't she gotten divorced? How could she still be? Besides, this woman was almost 27 this year, wasn't she? A 27-year-old still a virgin. If you don't believe me, I can go to the hospital for an examination. Chloe continued to emphasize. At this, everyone fell silent. Of course, everyone but Dylan. After all, he was not human. Dylan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hilarious. Who are you trying to fool with that? Hospitals can do reconstructive surgery these days. Tomorrow, I'll have Grace go to the hospital for one too. She's also still a virgin. Slap. Brother backhanded him again, cutting off Dylan's words and sending him spinning in place. "Did I tell you to speak?" Thud. Brother raised his knee and jammed it into Dylan's abdomen. Dylan instantly curled up like a shrimp. Everyone stop. The police immediately intervened to stop brother's assault. Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, we'll be leaving now. If you have any issues, talk them out calmly. Assault is illegal and can lead to jail time. Also, find some time to go to the police station and register the incident. The officers had many duties to attend to every day. Seeing no further issues, they left after issuing their instructions. After the officers left, Dylan started acting up again. "Officers, how can you just leave? Are you this irresponsible now? And register it afterward." Brother angrily rubbed his forehead, then kicked him again, effectively shutting Dylan up. He walked over to his sister, Grace, and said, "Ethan is such a good person. Why did you get involved with Dylan again? Look at his pathetic, slovenly appearance. I truly despise him." Robert wasn't one to tolerate anyone. He also walked over and kicked Dylan twice to vent his frustration, then turned to Grace's parents and said, "What do you say about this matter? You owe us an explanation, don't you?" Grace's parents had remained cold throughout, but were relatively reasonable. Her father stepped forward and said, "The wedding is off. Our two families are not meant to be, let's go our separate ways from now on, that's it. I couldn't help but ask Richard, what about the wedding contribution? Surely that should be returned. Richard was silent, then said, half the wedding contribution will be returned. After all, you were also in a room with another woman, weren't you? Who said my daughter was the one who cheated first? Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. This counter-question instantly disheartened me. I tried to explain that nothing inappropriate had happened between Chloe and me. No one believed me. The wedding contribution was a total of 280,000 yuan. For wealthy people, this might not be a huge sum, but for an ordinary family like mine, 280,000 yuan was a fortune. It was money Robert had painstakingly saved. Little by little, I had done nothing wrong, so why should I listen to them? Then well, just have to go to court. I believe the law will give me a fair explanation. I didn't blame anyone but myself for being so overly devoted. An overly devoted person gives everything, and is left with nothing. What they say online is true. Being overly devoted never ends well. After this incident, Grace and I had absolutely no chance of reconciliation. Grace laughed. Do you think you can win by going to court? I am a lawyer. I know very well that this matter isn't something a single video can prove. Besides, it's also a fact that you and Chloe were living together. Legal matters rarely resolve family issues cleanly, and judges only look at evidence. If you insist on legal proceedings, you might even have to split your house with me in the end. I had forgotten that Grace used to be a practicing lawyer, but was later permanently barred from the legal profession due to personal issues. At that moment, Chloe stepped forward. She walked into the middle of everyone, smiling radiantly. Excuse me, everyone, but I can prove that Ethan and I have no relationship whatsoever, because I am still a virgin. My brain instantly short-circuited. Hadn't she gotten divorced? How could she still be? Besides, this woman was almost 27 this year, wasn't she? A 27-year-old still a virgin. If you don't believe me, I can go to the hospital for an examination. Chloe continued to emphasize. At this, everyone fell silent. Of course, everyone but Dylan. After all, he was not human. Dylan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hilarious. Who are you trying to fool with that? Hospitals can do reconstructive surgery these days. Tomorrow, I'll have Grace go to the hospital for one too. She's also still a virgin. Slap. Brother backhanded him again, cutting off Dylan's words and sending him spinning in place. Did I tell you to speak? The messy confrontation fizzled out without a clear resolution. Afterward, I asked Chloe about her statement. Chloe's expression was slightly unnatural. You know how much courage it takes for a woman to reveal something so private. I nodded. Yes, but you can't lie either. Chloe shot me a look. What? When have I ever lied to you? I was stunned. She wasn't lying. The reason I divorced my ex-husband is simple. He was gay and didn't like women. He only married me to appease his family. Later, everything came to light. His parents discovered him with another man in their house, and then I got divorced, losing everything. That single phrase, losing everything, conveyed so much injustice and bitterness. I could roughly imagine the scene, her gay ex-husband being caught in the act by his parents, who then, having no choice but to make them divorce, pressured Chloe to leave with nothing so their hard-earned money wouldn't benefit an outsider. This speculation had a basis, because in my mind, Chloe was ambitious, loved money, and had principles, so she disdained taking divorce money. Within her ordinary frame flowed a proud spirit. So, can you help me get an examination at the hospital? Chloe sat on the sofa with her legs tucked under her and her arms crossed, in a pose I couldn't possibly manage, and said indifferently, "You're overthinking it. I just wanted to annoy Grace. Why should I let her get under my skin? You don't actually think that a virginity certificate from me will get you the entire wedding contribution, do you? You'd be incredibly naive. You just mocked me." My heart felt a little sour, somewhat uncomfortable. Chloe chuckled. Really dense, aren't you? Technology is so advanced these days. What information can't you find? All you have to do is prove she cheated first, and I can corroborate that nothing happened between us. Wouldn't that be enough? Chloe's words reminded me. The best proof was Dylan's social media posts. I quickly opened my phone and frantically screenshotted every interaction concerning Grace from Dylan's social media posts. I also enlisted a lawyer to help investigate Chloe. and Dylan's hotel records for the past 2 years. Lawyers could indeed find this kind of information. It was their duty to act when paid. Robert told me to be cautious and move back into our apartment first to prevent Grace from causing more trouble. I thought it made perfect sense and moved back that very day. To my surprise, at 6 in the evening, Grace was still home. At this time of day, she would usually be out, either with Dylan or at various clubs and bars, returning only just before midnight. Back. Grace's tone was much gentler, completely unlike her previous playing the victim demeanor. The aroma of cooked food wafted from inside the house. I didn't know if she had anticipated my return and cooked in advance, or if I was just imagining things. I've made all your favorite dishes. Shall we sit down, eat, and talk? Sure enough, she had guessed I would return. I sat down, but I didn't eat a single bite of the food. In fact, my mind even wondered if she might try to poison me. After all, if she could cheat and play the victim, there was no telling what other outrageous things she might do. Why aren't you eating? She thoughtfully placed some food on my plate and even brought it to my mouth herself. Only then did I notice that Grace was dressed very revealingly today. She was already beautiful, with a good figure. Even the oversized purple plaid shirt couldn't conceal her fullness. Despite her blatant display, I remained unmoved. My gaze swept over her cleavage, met Grace's eyes, and I said flatly, I am afraid you might poison me. Grace's face showed a desolate and lonely expression. After a moment of silence, she said, putting the facts aside, don't you have any fault in this? My mind was filled with questions. I felt like I had heard or seen that phrase somewhere before. What fault do I have? I asked her. Grace said, you shouldn't have gotten so close to Chloe. As long as you cut off all contact with Chloe and promise not to have any ambiguous relationship with her again, I can give you another chance. What a ridiculous thing to say. She was the one who made the mistake. As a woman, after getting engaged to her fiancé, she still couldn't forget her idealized past love, and after being caught cheating, she could shamelessly say something like that without batting an eye. Thinking about it, I felt relieved. She was truly that shameless kind of woman. I always believed that after breaking up with an ex, one shouldn't speak ill of them, because at one point, they were the most beloved people in each other's eyes. Clearly, Grace did not fall into that category. She was truly shameless. I am sorry, but I don't need your chance, Grace. If you have any conscience left, give me back what's rightfully mine. Bang! The master bedroom door burst open, and Dylan emerged, buttoning his belt, a look of satisfied contentment on his face. Is this your attitude? I demanded of Grace. She had given me far too many surprises. Grace's face subtly changed. Why haven't you left yet? Dylan chuckled. Changing his usual demeanor, he said to Grace, why should I leave? Things have already escalated this far. Do you think Ethan will still be with you? Grace, you only have one path now, and that's to be with me. I never expected the man Grace hailed as her idealized past love to one day utter such threatening words. I noticed Grace's expression shift repeatedly. She probably hadn't anticipated that this was the real Dylan. I pulled out my phone and started recording a video. Opportunities like this were rare. Realizing they were about to erupt into an argument, I discreetly left. Chloe was a woman of action. She quickly obtained an official medical report from a reputable hospital and sent the document to my phone. I looked closely, and indeed, she was still a virgin. Grace regretted it, because she had finally seen Dylan's true colors and cut ties with him. She even dragged out the divorce until the cooling-off period. According to customs here, while they had obtained a marriage license, they hadn't held the actual wedding ceremony yet. So, she was nominally my fiancé, but from a legal standpoint, she was my wife. Now, every day she would either waylay me at my workplace, block me at our apartment, or show up at Chloe's place. She called brother, hoping he would put in a good word for her with me. I actually felt indifferent toward her family, except for brother. Although we had clashed before, I truly admired his straightforward personality, how he loved and hated fiercely, and stood by what was right, not just his kin. Brother was exceptionally tough. He brought Dylan, who was now bruised and swollen, directly to me, and he forced him to apologize to me. Grace said, Ethan, I've realized my mistake this time. I promise I'll be twice as good to you in the future and be a proper wife. Please, will you give me another chance? She was afraid to divorce me. Was it because she truly realized her mistake? Not really. Her bad reputation had already spread throughout the area. No one dared to take her on, except Dylan. The interesting thing was, Grace now looked down on Dylan. In the past, I would have found that incredibly satisfying. Now, I only felt annoyance. The more she behaved like this, the more repulsed I felt, because, without realizing it, my heart had quietly been filled by Chloe. Grace was right about one thing, I had indeed cheated, but not physically. My heart and mind had cheated with Chloe. On countless nights when Grace had broken my heart, Chloe had been there to comfort me. Although her words were often blunt and she frequently ribbed me, it was a form of reverse psychology comfort. Grace, I don't love you anymore. The adult world isn't just about fleeting pleasure, it's about responsibility and consequences. I gave you chance after chance, even choosing to forgive you the first time I discovered your infidelity, even called me crazy. Do you know when I stopped loving you? It was when you brought both our parents and started playing the victim. This time, I spoke very clearly. The hope in Grace's eyes was replaced by despair. She had always believed that as long as she humbled herself, no matter how big a mistake she made, I would forgive her. It had always been that way. All right, I agreed to divorce you. Grace no longer tried to salvage the marriage and agreed to my request. I had originally thought I'd need to gather evidence to get back everything that rightfully belonged to me. Unexpectedly, Grace voluntarily gave up her claim to the shared assets and returned the $280,000 wedding contribution in full. She only kept the jewelry and designer handbags I had bought for her. 6 months later, my relationship with Chloe naturally progressed. We got married. She was a second marriage, and so was I. A good match, wouldn't you say? In the 2nd year of our marriage, I welcomed a healthy baby boy. In the 5th year, I was picking up my son from school when I saw brother by the roadside, leaning against a car and smoking a cigarette. We hadn't seen each other in 6 years, and he looked much older. His once sexy tattoos had faded with time, revealing his original skin tone. Brother, long time no see. Brother put out his cigarette underfoot and forced a smile at me. I noticed his eyes were red, as if he'd been crying. He spoke to me in an almost pleading tone. Ethan, could you go see Grace again? I immediately dropped my smile. No, he continued. Grace is dead. Before she died, she entrusted me with a letter, asking me to make sure it reached you. The letter's content was unremarkable, just ordinary words forming a message of regret. What surprised me, however, was that Grace had contracted AIDS. The gist of the letter was that shortly after our divorce, she was diagnosed with AIDS. Brother had taken her back to the rural area to recuperate, but unfortunately, her health was poor, and her condition steadily worsened. Dylan had infected her, now was still alive, but she was dead. Only then did I notice bloodstains on the back of the envelope. My expression shifted slightly. Brother noticed my expression and chuckled. Did you figure it out? I just killed Dylan. He's in the trunk of my car right now. Actually, you really didn't need to do it yourself. Fate would have eventually claimed his life, and you ended up incriminating yourself. Brother shook his head. I am involved in street life. Do you think I don't understand these things? Don't worry. It was self-defense. That scumbag Dylan knew he had the disease, and was running around like a biological weapon, spreading it everywhere. I did the public a favor. How could the police arrest me? Brother drove away in his car. A few days later, I saw him on the news. He had indeed killed Dylan and gone to prison. However, he only had to serve 3 years because he provided a video that proved it was self-defense, though ultimately ruled excessive force in self-defense. As for me, after that incident, I completely said goodbye to my past, loving my wife, raising my son, and working hard to support my parents. That was now my top priority.